there are hundreds and hundreds of incredible games out there. But some of those games are honestly just better solo. So in this video, we're gonna talk about the games that are better solo and why. Now, I'm a massive fan of what are called multiplayer solitaire games. Multiplayer solitaire games are games where they're multiplayer, so you're playing with people, but there's not a whole lot of interaction amongst the players. You're not like getting in each other's way a lot. You're not attacking each other. You're not stealing stuff from each other. There's just not a whole lot of interaction. There are a lot of people who really hate those kinds of games because they like games to have interaction. And I think that's a totally fair thing to want in a game. I just personally don't care. And so I love multiplayer solitaire games, but some games are so multiplayer solitaire that they're just solo games. And a great example of that is The Anarchy. The Anarchy is just a solo game. It's technically not, I wanna make that clear. You can play this game 1 to 4, 5, 4, and you can play it multiplayer, but like realistically, it's just a solo game. And Bobby Hill, who designed it, and Garphill Games, who made the game, knew that because their previous game, Hadrian's Wall, which is kind of a predecessor to The Anarchy, most people played solo. The vast majority of people play Hadrian's Wall solo because they just work better as a solo game. So in Hadrian's Wall, they actually went so far as to make a whole solo scenario booklet where you have 20 solo scenarios you can play because they knew going into this that, hey, we know y'all are gonna be playing this game solo, so we're going to cater to you because that's frankly how you should play the game. Now, Hadrian's Wall and The Anarchy are big roll and writes. You can see you have 2 sheets of paper here, and you're constantly crossing off things that will give you bonuses, give you resources, give you various workers, and then you can then spend those workers to do other actions and send them over here to kind of do these things. And you're constantly going back and forth and comboing all this stuff off each other in this really cool and satisfying way. I love games like this where you're just doing wombos all over the place. But the thing is that everything you're doing is taking place on your sheets of paper, your castle, your kind of like little area here. There's nothing you can really do to affect other people. If you get like a knight, you can't send that knight over to Mike to go beat up his people. It's just a knight that you use for your own defenses. And like I said, you have a castle, and every single round you're gonna be getting attacked at different parts of that castle. But everyone gets their own attack cards, and again, you're not attacking each other's castles, you're getting attacked by the game. And so if you're adding like various towers and stuff like that, and other different walls and stuff, you're doing it to defend against these cards, not from the other players. And the real reason that this game is so great solo is because you're gonna be playing this entire game like this. Just like this, just doing this. Maybe once while you look up, is that a bird? Nope. Back to the game, back to the game. I love multiplayer solitaire games. I love them so much, they're my favorite kind of games. But this game is just so multiplayer solitaire that it's just a solitaire game. And that's not a knock on it, I love it, but it is what it is. Hey, subscribe you butts. It really helps a lot. I know we always say that, but it really actually does. So do it, be part of the team. Some of my favorite games to solo are games where you have a faction or an empire or something like that. And if those factions are very different, they're very asymmetric, I tend to really enjoy playing those solo because a lot of the point of those games, at least in my opinion, is to learn that faction and really learn how they play and how to play them well. And I really enjoy that in a solo setting, which is why one of my favorite games of solo is Mythic Mischief. I love everything about this game. Mythic Mischief is a game where you're gonna take on a faction. Your faction is essentially a clique out of magical high school. In this case, we'd be the Gargoyles. We're going against the werewolves, not swearwolves.
We're werewolves. Not swearwolves. What are we?
Werewolves, not swearwolves.
And you're basically trying to be the first person to 10 points. That's also how the solo game works as well. But in this version, this is technically volume 2, there is a hedge master that is going around to these kind of predestined spots. If they ever land on top of a mythic, they say send them to detention. I like to think that they eat them and kill them, but everyone keeps telling me I'm wrong about that. You're basically trying to get your opponents in the way of the hedge master so they step on them. Whenever your opponent's mythic gets caught, you will get a point. And all the factions are pretty darn different, even though the differences between them are seemingly very small. So on your board, there are 4 actions. You can always move, you can move other characters, you can move, in this case, the hedges, and you can do what's called distract, which means you're gonna distract the headmaster here. But the main thing is these two, the ones where you get to move other mythics or you get to move the hedges. Those two are always different between the factions. So the gargoyles here, they can basically, if they're next to a hedge, they can move the hedge with them one space like that, or if they're with another mythic, they can kind of grab them and move them like that. But that's just the gargoyles. There might be another faction that can take a hedge and essentially move it to the other side of them, or maybe move it like this. And even though those seem like very small changes, in a small grid-based abstract strategy game, that small difference actually is huge and really kind of massively changes the way that you need to play the game, where you position your people, how you move them around, what positions you're trying to get them into. It really changes everything. And you do legitimately have to get good at it. I will play this game over and over and over again as the same faction, trying to learn how to manipulate it, how to work them. And I think the solo is a really good way of doing that. Now, even though you're playing against a specific faction, they all kind of work the same. They're basically going to constantly going towards their enchanted tomes with these little pieces on the board, which will give them a point. Your tomes get to go in here and kind of boost your various stats. If they can't reach a tome, they're going to go towards another mythic, and when they get to your spot, they're going to push you closer to the groundskeeper. And if they can't reach that, they're basically just going to go as far away from the groundskeeper as they possibly can. So that's one downside of the solo mode, is you don't really get to see how the other faction plays. And like in a two-player game, which is normally how you play this game, you not only are trying to play your faction, you're also trying to react to the other person's faction and how they work. So you are losing that in a solo game, but to me, I don't really mind because I really just want to focus on my own faction. And it doesn't help that the production value on this game and all Ivy Studio games is absolutely bonkers, but I really, really love this whole world, and just this kind of like cool, clicky high school stuff is fun in this kind of magical, mystical world. And I think it's an absolute masterpiece. Now, one thing I actively don't like in solo games is when I have to run a really big and complicated AI bot. That to me kind of defeats the purpose of a solo game when I'm basically having to play two full players on their own. It just feels weird. It takes me away from what I really want to do, which is focus on my own game. If I have to stop and spend like 5 minutes, like, okay, then I do this, okay, look at reference sheets, like, oh, and then they do this. It's just like, to me, there's just no point. But for some reason, I'm completely fine with Civolution doing that. Now, to be fair, Civolution's bot is not that complicated, and as you get a couple of rounds in, the kind of ways you do things make sense, and you get to figure them out pretty quickly. But it's still a solo game I don't generally tend to enjoy because of the fact that it's a massive, massive Euro game. As you can see, this alone is your player board, and you're putting in tiles and cards to fill in these little step areas. There's a whole board over here. You're bumping tracks over here. This is like timing out the game and stuff over here. There's all of these cards. There's a ton going on in Civolution because you're a deity kind of making your own little civilization and stuff. And so how do you run a bot in a game like this? And the reality is that you have to do some stuff. Some kind of big Euro games, you can kind of just play your own game and not really even have a bot. You're just trying to beat your own score. But in this one, you really do, because there is contests out here when you're going for like these various spots out here and revealing resources and all this different kind of stuff. And so you have to have a bot. And your bot is right here, and they are named Vicky.
My name is John Johnson, but everyone here calls me Vicky. Will you please follow me?
And in all honesty, like I said, Vicky's not that hard to run. Basically, whenever she goes, your game is exactly the same. You are still building out stuff, you're still upgrading your civilization, you're upgrading your actions and doing all of those kinds of things. I really love this game. Basically what's gonna happen is you're gonna flip over her card, her next card, and there's gonna be a blue and a red side. And basically how difficult you want the game to be is how you choose which side of these. In a kind of beginner game, which is what I play because I'm a big dumb baby, is you play all blue sides. But then you can start kind of mixing in playing some red sides as well, or you can play all red if you want a difficult game. And then basically on these cards, it's going to tell you what she's gonna do. Sometimes you roll a dice to kind of see what she's gonna do. And in this case, she's like exploring these little like ice fields and stuff like that, kind of doing the same things that you would be doing as a player. And the way the game times out is through your civilizations kind of resetting, because again, you're kind of these big gods, these kind of big deities, and you're kind of looking at everything from above and resetting your civilization every once in a while. And that is going to be moving this marker here. So every time you reset and kind of get your dice back, that moves along and that times out the game and times out the round. So every time Vicky is flipping over cards, they will either have blue and red dots down here. And once there is 4 of each, we have 4 blue and we have 4 red, she is then going to reset, which means these cards are going to go over here, kind of go to a discard pile, and then again, this would move forward. And then her next turn, she'll kind of just keep drawing cards, and then you'll shuffle them back through. And all the ways she does her actions are kind of laid out right here. But again, it is one of those kind of big bots because there is a board out here with a bunch of different terrain types, and there's a lot of like prioritization with her and kind of different things that you will do in different priorities. And so learning that can be a little bit tough. But once you get a couple turns in where you've had to like figure out her priority and all this different kind of stuff, you eventually get it and you can take her turns pretty quickly. And if honestly the bot was any more complicated than that, I really wouldn't play this game solo, because what I want to do is I want to focus on my own thing. Look at all this stuff. Look at all these things to play with. I want to focus on this. I don't want to have to focus on this. I don't like when games pull me away from my own game to take some big complicated bot turn. And this one I was very intimidated by, but I actually really enjoyed it solo. I was actually quite surprised with how much I enjoyed it. And it does simulate a kind of other player pretty well. You are going against them, they can win the game, which is generally something that's relatively important to me. And it's just really, really fun. And it's kind of this big setup, but once you kind of get it going, you get it running, and you learn how Vicky works, it goes pretty smoothly for, again, an enormous Euro game like this. And so I love Civillution solo. It's really, really good, especially for a game of this size. Look, I'm not dumb, but I'm not smart. So when it comes to deduction games, I have a tendency to prefer them solo, because then I can just worry about my own puzzle and not have to worry about trying to be smarter than someone and faster than someone. But in this entry, I'm not actually talking about Turing Machine. I talked about this in a previous video. I'm instead talking about the search for UAPs. Just like in Turing Machine and many other deduction games, I prefer the search for UAPs solo. This is a logic deduction game where you are trying to find, in this case, the UAP, the unidentified anomalous phenomena. I'm not sure why it's not just called UFOs. They're basically UFOs. But you're basically trying to find the UAPs up in the sky, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff up there, and they all have logic rules. And those logic rules might be like, this thing can't be next to this thing is always next to this thing. So if you find one of those things, you're like, oh, this is always next to one of these, so I know that next door there has to be one of these other things. And as you go through the game, you're deducing down and down and down, and eventually, hopefully you can find the UAP, and hopefully quicker than anyone else. Now, there are actually 3 search for games out there: the search for Planet X, the search for lost species, and the search for UAPs. And I enjoy them all solo, but don't actually prefer them all solo. I prefer the search for Planet X and UAPs solo, but the search for lost species, I actually prefer multiplayer. In the game, in the solo game, you are playing against the app, because your opponent in the app also does not know where Planet X, the lost species, or the UAP is. And as they're playing the game, they're also learning where certain things are in those logic rules, and you're trying to beat them. Now, in the search for Planet X and the search for UAPs, your kind of areas you're working on are circles, because you're looking up at the sky. And those circles are just easier to run the bot around. When you're moving them around, you're only moving around a little bit, they're looking straight up, there's not really a ton of like spatial stuff going on in the game. But in the search for lost species, you are on an island, and you and the bot are gonna be moving around the island, and there's just more spatial stuff going on. Certain of the animals that you're looking for are in like very specific shapes or next to different kinds of terrain and stuff. And for some reason, running the bot like that isn't particularly difficult, but I just like it less, and because of the spatialness of the game, I just prefer it multiplayer. So as I said, the search for UAPs is a logic deduction game, which means you are trying to deduce something, in this case, trying to find the UAP, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff up in the sky. There's like meteors and spy satellites and communication satellites and the UAP and space junk and stuff like that. And all of those things have rules of how they work. And all the rules are written on the inside of your screen here, and the rules will be something like spy satellites can only be in odd numbered sectors. So if you're doing kind of a scan, say like you're doing a scan of 2 through 4, and it says, oh, there's one spy satellite there. Well, you know it can't be in 2 and 4. You know it has to be in 3 because it's only in odd numbers. And as you figure out these things by scanning the sky, you will eventually be able to deduce where the UAP is, basically through process of elimination. And it's really, really fun because the app kind of takes care of everything. And the game also has a patchwork type action selection system where certain actions are much more powerful than other actions. And so when you spend actions, you'll be spending time doing those things, and whoever is behind on the track will get get to go, and if they're further behind, they will get to keep going until they're in front of you. And you even have this cool dry erase board that you can mark onto, like, oh, I know this isn't here, I know that isn't there. And you need this specific kind of dry erase board because this will constantly be turning. Because we're standing on the Earth is rotating, so things will be rotating along with it. So as you are deducing these things, you also need to keep track of them. And the solo for this game is really, really good because, as I said, the app is running the solo bot. And as you are making discoveries, you can essentially put out these little camera tokens to basically say, I know what's here, and then eventually these will reveal and the app will tell you whether or not you're correct. Once you reveal them, then everyone knows that that's what's there, but you get more points for revealing these things. And like I said, the app also does not know where the UAP is, and so it will be taking actions as well, and it will be putting out these photos, trying to guess where stuff is, and you can actually lose to the app if they beat you to it. I really, really enjoy deduction games a lot, but I like to be able to just sit there and get into the puzzle, just sit there and really take my time, try to logic stuff out. And when I'm playing against other people, again, sometimes I can feel kind of dumb. I've gotten better at deduction games, but I'm not particularly fast at them. So if it's a game like this where you're trying to figure out things quicker than everyone else, I can sometimes feel a little bit stupid. And so I really just enjoy getting into that puzzle on my own. What? Hello? Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna deal with that. That's gonna be a room of blood or something, and I'm just frankly not paid enough to deal with that, so okay, bye. Nope. 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 I'm so scared.
Yeah, tell me about it, man.
Jeez, where'd you come from?
Dude, I've been hiding in here.
There's a killer out there.
Yeah, there's like a blood room.
There's a room of blood. Yeah, man.
Where's Jimmy? Wait, shh. Do you think that's Jimmy?
Is that Jimmy?
You go check.
Okay.
Jimmy.
What? You guys are like 5 hours late.
See that red room? See the room of blood? Go in there.
Go in there.
Go see what's in there.
If you get haunted, we'll give you workers' comp.
Go.
I'm busy. Hey, it's not like I'm just editing this ad read right now. Whatever, it's fine. I'll just go in the blue. Yeah, fine, whatever. Lazy ass. Guys, it's just Terra Escape 2.
Well, it looks like those boys are gonna be fine. Today's sponsor is IceMakes, who have Terra Escape 2 on crowdfunding right now. You can check out a link in the description of this video to check that out. This is a standalone new chapter in the Terra Escape extended universe where once again, a player is gonna be playing a monster who is working their way around the board, trying to hunt down the players, and all other players will play the survivors who are now trying to repair a radio, repair a vehicle to get out of there, get some weapons to actually face down the monster themselves. And it's a little bit of a game of hide and seek. So you have a big divider in the middle of the table. On one side, all of the survivor players are going to be moving around. On the other side, the monster is going to be in the dark. They're not going to know where people are, but those survivors might be making noise. And that's going to give some information as to where people might be. The hunter is, of course, trying to hunt and have a kill. If they kill even one survivor, they instantly win the game. Again, the other team is looking for keys and things to escape or finding another mode out of this nightmare. And everything that's in this new version is completely compatible with the first chapter from Terra Escape. And if you are interested, check out the campaign is linked in the description of this video. And again, big thanks to IceMakes. One of the nice things about co-op games is most co-op games you can also play solo because you're all on the same team anyway, so there's usually not too much of a difference if it's just you. But in many of these games, you end up having to play multiple characters because just playing as one character, you would just be underpowered. You really couldn't do it all on your own, so a lot of times you have to have like 2 or maybe even 3 separate characters. And in some games like Marvel United, this isn't really a problem because the game is so simple and all the characters and the card play is so simple that playing 2 characters isn't really much harder at all than playing just 1 character. So you can kind of get away with it. And I do like Marvel United solo, but that's not what we're talking about today. Because one game that I really, really adore solo, even though you are kind of still technically playing 3 characters, is the Loop. It's a time travel game, looping, loop stuff, you get it. I love the Loop. The Loop is one of my favorite kind of co-op games, and that is what I usually call a crisis management game. Kind of like Pandemic. Bad stuff is happening and you are trying to manage all of that bad stuff. And this one takes place in this septagonal, 7-sided board here, where Dr. Foe, who is this butt right here, is going through time. You can see all these different versions of Dr. Foe. They're going through time. So start the Age of Antiquity, then Renaissance, or medieval times, then Renaissance, and then like the industrial era and the modern era, then the robot era, and then the end of times. And basically, he's sending out his clones to all these different parts of the board, and we are all time traveling kind of people, and we're going around and trying to get the clones back to their proper time, which makes them explode. And you're trying to do missions which are around the board, and these missions will usually be about taking off these rift cubes, putting out these energy cubes, maybe destroying clones, and you'll have 2 of them at least all out at the same time, and you're basically trying to score and complete 4 of these missions before you lose. It's a really, really hard game that I really, really enjoy, and I end up playing it solo a lot. One, because I just like this game more than Mike does. Mike enjoys the game, but I really, really love it, and he likes it. And so I kind of end up playing it solo because of that. But the solo is actually really, really good as well. And like I said, this is solo where you're gonna be playing multiple characters. You can see I have 3 characters here because when you're playing solo, you're playing as 3 people. And each character has a little bit of a special ability, but then has their own starting deck of cards. And then as you play, you can get more of these cards which are in the different areas of time, which are things like a war horse, which is very much in the medieval time. Makes sense. It's cool thematic that way. But instead of taking turns like, I'm gonna go with this person, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, this one, down the line like that, the way it works is you're going to take all of their starter cards and you're going to shuffle them up. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. And then you're basically going to draw cards and put them with their person. And you can see right here that it has your little meeple on there so you know which card goes to which person. So if I drew this Mr. Time card, it would go here. Boom, another Mr. Time card. I didn't shuffle this very well. Ooh, the Time Prowler. And then another Time Prowler. And then another Time Prowler. And then once one character has 3 cards on them, that character then goes. And that's a really cool way to determine which of your characters gets to go, because you kind of don't have a choice, and so you have to adapt, which is a big part of crisis management games. You kind of have to adapt to who goes next. Now again, all the cards are shuffled into your own little personal deck, but as you get these new cards, basically if you end your turn where there is a card, you can take that card, and the cool thing about the game is that card gets to go whoop, back on the top of your deck. And the cool thing is if you draw a card that doesn't have one of the starter meeples on it, you can then choose who you put it on. So as the game goes on and you're getting more and more of these kind of special cards that are around the board, you're getting more and more agency to choose who gets to go next. I love when I'm playing this game and I'm always like, okay, we're gonna see. I would really like the blue guy to go, but if pink goes, that's okay too. And then you're like, oh no, it's orange. Dang it, she's over here. I don't really need them to go right now. Okay, well, this is what it is. So how am I gonna make this work? And this game is very, very cooperative, which is one of the reasons why I think it works well in this kind of multi-handed solo game, because you are constantly dropping stuff and moving your friends around and putting these energy cubes down. These energy cubes are very important because if you're in a spot with an energy cube, you can spend it to move, which is nice, but also you can spend it to do something called looping. So right now I have 3 Mr. Time cards here. So Mr. Time is going, and you basically will use their cards by kind of tapping them like this. Boom, boom, boom. I've done a whole bunch of cool stuff. But then if Mr. Time is a spot with an energy cube, you can spend this to loop. And what looping is you can basically see these symbols in the top left corner. Any of the same symbol, I can then choose to have them come back and be ready again. So I can kind of put these star ones. I can't do the slash one because it's a different symbol. And then later on, if there's ever a spot where there's 2 energy cubes, I can then loop again. And then if I want to do the 3rd time, there would have to be 3 energy cubes. But you can really set up your teammates in this game because a lot of the cards will allow you to put energy cubes out on the board. So you're like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave this energy cube here. I'm going to put it with you so on your turn, you can either move or loop really easily. There's a lot of table talk in the game. There's a lot of planning in the game, and I really like that. And you still get that with the solo game because you're playing multiple characters. And I think it simulates the normal game really, really well, while also kind of having a cool character selection system. I don't know, this is just one of those games that I'm infinitely charmed with, and I really, really like it solo. So as I talked about with Mythic Mischief, I really enjoy games where you get to take a faction and you really get to dive in deep and learn that faction. And the absolute pinnacle of doing that, for me at least, is Imperium Horizons, Imperium Classics, Imperium Legends. There are 3 of these games. They are all completely intermixable, so choose whatever one you want. I like Imperium Horizons, mostly because it gives a couple little quality of life things, but you can play with any of them. They're all exactly the same because they're all just about taking a different nation, a different faction. In this case, you have like the Japanese, there's the Celts, there's the Mayans, there's the Romans, there's so many other people. There's tons and tons and tons of factions. I think there's like 35 or something like that now. There's Martians and cultists and stuff all over the place. But they all play very differently. And the whole purpose of this game, at least to me, is about learning that faction. And it's about really diving deep and learning how your cards work. Because again, this is a deck building game, if you didn't know. And every nation has their own deck. Every faction has their own deck. And there are common cards out here that you can get to add to your deck. But really, the makeup of your deck is what changes the game for you. There's different things that you are trying to go for, different things that are going to score you points, just different stuff that makes sense for your faction. If you're like the Romans, you're trying to get a lot of these yellow region cards because the Romans be expanded. There are factions that are very, very aggressive. There are factions that are very, very peaceful. And all of those things are accurate to those nations and those empires in real life. And the game is really thematic in those ways. The cards that you're playing as you play your characters out are things that happened in that nation's history. You literally even have a history kind of like tableau that you're building throughout the game because you do this big thing and then it goes into your history pile, never to be used again because that part of history is over. And at this point, I think this, with no actual like evidence or statistical analysis for this, I think this is widely becoming one of the most popular games to solo out there. It is widely considered one of the best solo experiences out there. I would say probably most people who play this game end up playing it solo anyway. And that's honestly because the solo is just that dang good. Like I said, you're gonna be taking on your faction and you have your own specific deck, which again makes sense for your people and like kind of what they do and like what happened in their history. And then other people will be taking on factions as well. And a multiplayer game of this really just makes the game longer. This game is very multiplayer solitaire. You are not really affecting each other. Again, some of the more aggressive factions will have more of these like sword cards, and those sword cards a lot of times will get rid of other people's, you know, their areas, their different cards, things like that. But that's kind of the only interaction in the game. Other than that, you're kind of just building out your tableau and building out your engine and trying to deck build and get the most points. So adding more people really just adds time, and that's it. And that's just not a particularly good reason to play a game multiplayer, in my opinion. So Mike also really likes this game. So if Mike really wants to play this game, I will happily play it 2-player, but if I'm being real, I would just rather play it solo. And that kind of goes back to what I said with the solo being so dang good. Because in a solo game, you are still going to go up against another nation. You're still going to be going up against another faction. In this case, we have the Mayans out here. And basically, the way the solo works is just very cool. It's very simple. It's very easy to run it. Like I said with Civolution, I don't generally like big, heavy bots that you have to run. They just kind of take me away from the game, especially a game like this where I just really want to focus on my own faction and myself. You're basically going to be rolling this die, put it on here, and then anything you did not roll, so in this case 2 through 5, you're going to flip over these cards and then you're going to resolve them. Apparently they're all unrest. And so you're going to flip over these cards and then you're going to resolve them in that order. And then in Imperium Horizons, they gave you all of these various little cards. And these cards are specific to each faction, and this is how the AI bot runs. So basically, when you flip over a card, you're going to look at the things on the card and then start going down this list, and you're basically going to find the first thing that will activate something on this list. So if we drew this headpiece card, we basically start to look at the different symbols on here and then go down this list. First one, is it an unrest card? Nope. Okay, next one down. Is it a trade card? Oh, nope. Next one down. Is it specifically the Batoli card? Nope. It's not that card. Oh, but it is a mask card. So you're going to go ahead and do this part of the card right here. And if it wasn't that, you'll keep going down until you hit other, which is just any other card, and then you'll go ahead and do that. And that system, the way the AI bots work, is just really, really simple and easy. You flip over the card, you find the first thing that it matches, and you do that thing, and that's it. You get to go back to your turn. So most of the time, you're just getting to play, you're getting to do your own thing. But the AI bots are all different because, again, all factions have different cards, and they're all still true to their nation. So again, if you're playing against the Romans, they're going to be snagging up a whole bunch of regions because that Romans be expanded. abandon. And your goal is to have more points than the bot at the end of the game. But the cool thing about this game as well is that you can actually run a solo campaign. They knew that a lot of people play this game solo, so they put a little campaign in it. When you play solo, you can choose 5 different difficulties, and when you play the campaign, you will choose a faction, and you will play as that faction all the way through the campaign, which could be 9 games. And because it's built that way, it really forces you to play the same faction over and over and really get to know them. Because as you start to understand the cards and the synergies and the things that your faction likes to do, you can then go forward with that knowledge, and next time as the campaign gets harder, you can then be like, oh, now I know how to do this better. You're getting better and better, and you're able to overcome these harder challenges. Because whenever you win a game, you are going to get a little bit of a bonus, and then you're gonna move to the next difficulty. And then if you lose a game, you'll get to play that same level difficulty again, but with more resources this time to give you a better chance. And you're basically trying to win 5 games through all 5 difficulties before you lose 4 games. And getting to just play that same faction over and over and over again is exactly what I want from a game like this, and from a solo game specifically. Imperium is just so freaking good. Again, it's kind of become one of the more popular solo games out there for a reason, and they're all really, really great. I will say that these little cards only come in Imperium Horizons, but they give you cards for everything, including all the factions in Legends and Classics. So if you're gonna start, I would say start with this one just because you're getting all these, but honestly, get them all, they're all great. This game is not only becoming one of my favorite solo games, it's becoming one of my favorite games, period. Because I like it that much. I just love the gameplay, I love what you're doing, I love how good it is to solo. I can play it with Mike, a 2-player game, and it's still very, very fun. It's just so dang good. And I just want to explore every single faction. I hope they keep coming out with more and more and more of it. I'm like, please give me more factions, I want to play all of it, and I want to play them over and over and over again. I absolutely adore it. So those are some games that I prefer solo. I really, really love all of these games, and pretty much all of them I would play multiplayer if I had to, but really, I would just want to play them solo instead for the reasons that I talked about. Down in the comments below, make sure to let me know what games you prefer solo, and make sure to subscribe while you're there. Thanks so much for watching this video. We really appreciate it, and have a good one.